Hello, and welcome to Sarcastic Spinster, where I analyze the behavior of the minions of the Pussy Hat Goddess to figure out who she is, because love her or hate her, we need to understand her. So, what I would really like to do is talk about the narcissism of minions. And I think it is typical of minions of any movement once it reaches a certain point. Most social movements seeking equality and justice start out seeking equality and justice, and they're really hard to get moving. And as they pick up steam and people get on board, and it's a really great cause, and everything is moving forward. And then what happens is we get closer and closer and closer to equality. People become less and less and less active in the movement because they are more satisfied with their own situation. And eventually you get to the point of balance. And we've talked about swinging the pendulum. And if what you want to achieve is balance, once you're there, you're not an activist anymore. So in the movements that are trying to push the pendulum a little too far, that is almost by necessity narcissistic. At least that is my opinion. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. I read a book once. But this is kind of my take on it. And I figure if people out there can diagnose me with phobias, I can diagnose them with narcissism. It's only fair play, right? So I'm going to do a series of these videos looking at the narcissism of minions. And I'm using the symptoms and behaviors as listed on the website for the Mayo Clinic under Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So I'm just going to take them right the way they are listed on the Mayo Clinic website. So I'm going to take the first two bullet points under symptoms, and then I'm going to take how they react to criticism, the first bullet point under that. So, symptoms, the first two bullets are have an exaggerated sense of self-importance and have a sense of entitlement and require constant excessive admiration. Now, that doesn't sound at all familiar, does it? So going back and looking at have an exaggerated sense of self-importance. If you consider yourself a warrior at this stage where everybody else has already stopped fighting, you're going to see yourself with an exaggerated sense of self-importance. You're the only one continuing to carry the torch. And sometimes that's not an exaggerated sense. Sometimes that is actually legitimate. And we're talking about collective movements. I do just kind of want to make that clear. Somebody who is fighting for justice for a specific person, a specific situation, is different than minions of a movement, who it's more about perception and generalization and collectivism than individual specific cases. It may have started with individual and specific cases and have those at its cornerstone, but it has moved beyond that into a much broader and less specific, less tangible area, which is kind of why the pendulum keeps swinging. I just want to make sure that people who are out there fighting for justice for a specific loved one don't feel like I'm calling them a narcissist for doing that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. So, that exaggerated sense of self-importance And this one is really fun because, I mean, Hollywood comes into this, but really actors and actresses are, you almost have to be a narcissist to do that job. And that's nothing against them, but it takes some real belief in yourself to do a job, any job in entertainment, just because the rejection rate is so high. So to be able to withstand constant rejection, you almost have to be a narcissist. So I am in no way condemning the actors and actresses and the singers and dancers and, you know, just entertainers from being narcissistic. I understand that was a core thing that they needed in order to be able to get where they are. But when it comes to expressing their political opinion, that is really where it comes in. And it's, you know, my opinion should be more important because I'm me. And it's like, okay, you know, great, Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro. Yeah, your political opinion is just that, your opinion. No more important than anybody else's. Sorry. You may be able to influence more people, but anybody who's influenced by you just because you're famous, I'm not sure that's a badge of honor to wear. So, have a sense of entitlement and require constant excessive admiration. A need for recognition. And we all have a certain amount of that. It's and this may just be that it's only the narcissists I see. And that could very well be true. That it is only the narcissists I see. Because the ones who don't have that constant need for recognition, may be doing a lot of really great work that nobody knows about because they're not calling attention to themselves. They're not over there, look at me, look what I'm doing. And what is known as virtue signaling, I think, has a lot to do with this too. Of the, let me call attention to my tolerance and inclusiveness by hating those people over there for you. That's a really interesting one that kind of makes me chuckle, the virtue signaling. The constant need for admiration, who's always out there bringing attention to themselves, where sometimes it gets to the point where you're pretty sure it's more about them than it is about the cause. And they'll happily change their position if that's what it needs, if that's what they need to do to get the recognition. Several examples of this come to mind. But again, it's the people I see. So I'm really kind of starting to wonder about this now. Are there a whole lot of people out there behind the scenes? On the other hand, though, I don't think they're minions. If they're out there doing that, I think they're thinking with their own minds and coming up with the positions that they think are right and doing what they truly believe is in the best interest of people and helping individuals instead of the collective. So, coming full circle, no, I'm right. Minions are narcissists. Okay. So let's then look at, those are two of some of the blandest symptoms. But they were the first two, so that's where that's where I started. But how they handle criticism. This is a fun bullet point. They become impatient or angry when they don't receive special treatment. Yeah. We see a lot of double standard go on. I mean, even just now with all the stuff going on with, Brett Kavanaugh. Keith Ellison, who is the number 2 guy at the DNC, has been accused of assaulting his girlfriend. She has video evidence, or so she says, but people have seen her with bruises and injuries. And so, has he been asked to step down from where he is at the DNC? No. And what are they saying about the allegations against him? Well, she hasn't brought forth any actual evidence. And since we don't have any actual evidence, we have to think he's innocent. Really? Really? But he's a minion, so therefore he is getting the special treatment. Now, anybody who attempts to point this out to any of the other minions will find that the minions get rather irate. It was such a situation, actually, that got me called the self-hating misogynist that really had me get this whole thing rolling. But the special treatment is really a big one. Concessions should be made. What they're doing is so important that, they must be given a platform. And any attempt to criticize the platform they're using is so totally wrong. But if you were to try and use the same platform, you'd get booed off the stage. So, for example, if I won a Grammy, and that's so completely likely to happen. But if I won a Grammy and I went up to get my award and I used my speech to talk about how the women's movement is going too far and women need to be more tolerant of men and men have rights too, and we have biological differences, just friggin' deal with that, I would get booed off the stage. Now, I'm sure there would be some people in the audience who would support me, but the majority of them would not. And if I were to complain about my treatment, that would not fly. But if somebody, went to NASCAR and started spouting socialism and bashing President Trump and got booed off the stage, that would be different. That would be different. So they want the special treatment. They want a platform that they want to deny to you, which really is where the special treatment comes in. And if they don't get it, they get ugly. They get ugly. I'm trying to think of anything from a particular pussy hat goddess perspective. And I'm not coming up with anything, but I'm sure I will about, 37 seconds after I decide to stop this video. But it is pretty interesting to think about the typical personality characteristics displayed by somebody with the narcissistic personality disorder and the way that minions behave. And of course, if minions are just, they've abdicated thought and abdicated their power to the goddess that they serve, then they are a reflection of her. And of course, a goddess is going to be a narcissist. And she is looking to continue her own power and to keep her own power. And that requires a certain level of narcissism. It requires that you actually believe you deserve power. Because I am a firm believer. I am a firm believer that nobody who actively seeks a position of power should ever be fully trusted with it. I think a lot of times the best leaders are the ones who didn't want power. And what is the old saying? Some people are born great, some people achieve greatness, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. And I think something kind of similar goes along with power. Is those who There are those who really seek power, they want power, and there are those who have power thrust upon them. And how did Dumbledore put it to Harry? Find that it suits them well, or they wear it well, or something like that. But somebody who seeks a position of power wants power, and if you want power, you want to wield power. And we have to be very careful about who we allow to have power. And that is one of the reasons that our system of government was set up the way that it was to limit that power. However, it, like every government, has the flaw that once you elect someone into a position of power, they can always use that power to give themselves more power. That's how we end up with democratically elected tyrants, who are big old huge narcissists, by the way. So this is volume 1. It's probably going to be 6 or 7 volumes. Like I said, this was the least interesting of the bullet points. But I didn't want to continue talking about the Kavanaugh thing because everybody's basically saying the same thing, and it's not necessarily Pussy Hat Goddess specific. And the narcissism isn't necessarily Pussy Hat Goddess specific, but I think we've got a lot of minions running around in politics and as leaders in our culture. And no matter which master they serve, I think we need to start seeing minions as minions. I think it's in our own best interest to understand the minion mentality as much as it is the Pussy Hat Goddess and her specific minions. But just as a recap, I'm old, so I can't read without my glasses. Okay, they have the exaggerated sense of self-importance, which God knows they do. And the narcissistic personality disorder has a sense of entitlement and require constant excessive admiration. Stroke my ego, stroke my ego, stroke my ego. Aren't I wonderful? Aren't I wonderful? Please like, share, and subscribe because I'm so wonderful. And if you don't give me my special treatment, of liking and subscribing and sharing and commenting, I'm going to get angry, and it's not going to be pretty. You're not going to like me when I'm angry. Actually, I think you've probably seen me pretty pissed. I can get madder than that, but I wouldn't want to share. I had somebody tell me one time that I'm really, really funny when I'm angry, as long as you're not the one I'm angry at, and that they were bound and determined to never be the one that I was angry at. That kind of scares me a little bit. So I've been a little conscious of that ever since. But that is volume 1 of the Narcissism of Minions. As I said, like, share, subscribe. If you would, please. Hashtag Pussyhat Goddess. Something to think about.